Hello, welcome to PixelTunes Radio, episode 11. I'm Mike.
And I'm Ed.
And we are coming to you not live.
No, this is a podcast.
Yeah.
It's not a radio show.
Oh, yeah.
We call it PixelTunes Radio, but it's not really radio.
True.
We do broadcast from PixelTunes Tower around the world, though.
Yeah.
Via the internet.
Yes, you can hear us live everywhere, forever.
Just by stopping into our house.
And when I mean live, I don't mean live.
Fake live.
But I digress.
Yes. Today we're doing a console spotlight.
Yeah, we're doing the Game Boy this time around, and we've never done one of these spotlights before. I'm really excited. I'm sure there's going to be some really amazing music that we're going to listen to. We've got 10 awesome tracks.
So what we did is Mike picked 5 Game Boy games, and I picked 5 Game Boy games, and we mushed them together into one giant Game Boy sandwich.
Yeah, but there's a lot of weird stuff in here that you've picked. I gotta say.
Yeah, you know what? I've decided I'm going to be the obscure
You're gonna be the weird
guy.
dude. You're the weird dude.
Mike's going to be the common game guy,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be the game guy that plays songs that you're like, where the heck did this dude pick these musics from?
I'm gonna be the, hey, you ever guys play a
But you've never heard of Mega Man before.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll be like, here's a German game starring hippopotami.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the Game Boy first. So the Game Boy was introduced in
1989.
Yeah, and so it's actually coming up on its, 25th anniversary?
July
soon?
31st will be its 25th birthday.
Man, that makes me feel old.
Oh, I remember when it came out, so
Yeah, me too, yeah.
What did you have with the Game Boy when you first got it?
Alright, so I actually have a really funny Game Boy story. So, when the Game Boy came out, I was like, whatever. It wasn't until the Game Boy Play It Loud series came out, which were like transparent or, special colors.
Yeah.
And they advertised them in Nintendo Power, and that's what hooked me. They had like Ketchup, which was red. They had Relish, which was green, which is the one I really wanted, because green's my favorite color. And then they had, yellow, mustard, all that stuff. And so, it's weird. Like, I don't know what was going through my head, but my grandmother, I think I conned her into getting me the Game Boy. I don't know how I did that, but I was totally a big jerk. But I realized as soon as I bought it, I didn't even open it. I felt terrible about it. And I was bawling my eyes out, and finally I was just like, no, I feel bad, I want to return it. So I was 9 or something, and I was like, just return it. So my grandmother returned it. So it wasn't until the Game Boy Color came out that I actually legit got a Game Boy. And so I got the Game Boy, the purple one, the original purple one that came out. I got Zelda Link's Awakening DX. So that was my first experience with the Game Boy, and I think I pretty much just stuck with Game Boy Color games at first until I kind of went back years later and was like, oh my god, there's a whole other library here, which I knew about, like Metroid 2 and all that type of stuff. Went back and got those games, and I actually prefer original Game Boy games to Game Boy Color games. I think the Game Boy itself has a better library than the Game Boy Color did.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah. Definitely. My story's much more generic. I mean, when the Game Boy came out, I believe it probably was, I think it was like a graduation present or like a end of school year kind of present. Mm-hmm. We got the first run, standard white and gray and red Game Boy with Tetris, and I think Mario Land. And my brother and I would fight over it and play it in the car. And we never really got too many games for it. It was more of a, if we were on a long trip kind of thing, we would just kind of bust it out and play it. Yeah, I don't think I ever had a Game Boy Color. I got a Super Game Boy for the Super Nintendo. So I never really played too many Game Boy Color games. I remember having Ninja Turtles Fall of the Foot Clan, and I really liked the fact that you could plug in the headphones and listen to them in stereo, which was mainly the way I would do it, because my parents would always be like, shut that off, when they were driving in the car and I'm trying to listen to stuff. So, yeah, nothing fantastic in my story about Game Boy, but that was my experience.
Yeah, the biggest problem that I always had with the Game Boy was the monochromatic screen, because you really can't see anything on that screen.
Right.
And when the Game Boy Advance came out, I was like, all right, this is going to be awesome. And they didn't backlight it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there playing Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which was a launch title, and I'm just like moving the screen, trying to like go in, direct sunlight while I'm sitting as a Toys R Us employee, just like,
it's rough.
Gotta beat this game. I gotta beat it. But yeah, so when the Game Boy Advance SP, of course, came out, I mean, those are all counted in the Game Boy line, and I think the Game Boy has sold like 191 million copies of
118,
yeah, something like that.
That's not including Game Boy Advance. That's just Game Boy, Game Boy.
Oh, that's
Pocket,
just Game Boy and Game Boy Pocket, right?
Game Boy Light and Game Boy Color.
Yeah, no, but still, those are insane numbers.
It's pretty crazy.
I actually collect Game Boy Pockets now. I don't know why. I have no idea.
I don't have a Game Boy anymore. I have a Game Boy Advance.
Well, you're not a handheld guy, really.
Nah, yeah, I've talked about that on the last episode.
Yeah, I really like portable games. Pretty much it was always one of those, like, I'm going to take this on the go sort of thing. Like, I'm just waiting for the day when it's... Well, I mean, you can do it with the Vita nowadays, but I'm waiting for the day when you have a Nintendo handheld where you're like, you're playing on the handheld, or you're playing on the system, on like the Wii U 2 or whatever, and then you have your Nintendo 3 Double DS or something.
Dope.
Yeah.
The 4DS.
Yeah, the 4DS, I don't know. And you'll be able to take it on the go, just take the game that you were playing on the Wii U 2 or whatever and take that on the go. That would be awesome.
It would be nice eventually to include that kind of functionality.
Yeah.
But for now, we're stuck with playing either on the toilet or on your couch.
Wow. Oh, well.
So we're going to get into the music now.
Oh, yeah. We're going to do that whole music thing.
We do music on this podcast once in a while.
Spoilers. Our first track is a weird one. Okay, so it's the Nintendo Power Game Boy memory card song.
I bet you've all heard this one before.
Yeah, oh man, this is a classic. This is obviously Ed's pick. So tell me how you found out about this one.
When we talk about obscure, this is probably about as obscure as you get. The Nintendo Power GB memory flash RAM cartridge was a Japan-only peripheral where you could take this Game Boy cart that had flash memory built into it to convenience stores in Japan, and you can write games onto it and bring it home and play it. Kind of like the BS Satellaview for the Super Famicom.
Like the DS when you used to be able to
load them over Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Stop them over Wi-Fi. So similar to that, except it was a physical cartridge instead of just using the RAM and the DS. I found the music again by my forum. I don't remember who it was that clued me into it, but they just linked me to a YouTube video of the menu to this cartridge where you would select which game you wanted to play. And it's this groovy, catchy, kind of really neat piece of music.
This is very happy.
It gets stuck in your head very easily. Like even after you played it, after we were talking before the show, I just kept whistling it over and over again because it doesn't get out of my head.
Yeah, now this is definitely a very obscure track, and the weird thing is it says Nintendo Power. Now I don't think Nintendo Power came out in Japan.
Right, so they just used that name.
They used the name.
That was the branding they used for these flash writers that were in convenience stores. As far as who composed this song,
no idea.
There's no credit. There's no credit in the game.
Nope. But if you guys know who the composer is and you'd like to give us a shout out, let us know.
Please let us know. Yeah. We're very interested.
Give us a heads up and we'll be able to, I guess, officially tag somebody on this because it's a mystery to us.
Yep.
But make sure that this song is not a mystery to you. Here is, again, Nintendo Power Game Boy memory card. we are back. That was Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge, and the track was called New Messiah. And that is one of my favorite Castlevania songs, period.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool track.
I love this track. I mean, just that freaking bass, man.
Yeah, that square wave bass is, you don't really hear that kind of a bass that much. And I think more so in Game Boy games than NES games.
Yeah.
A lot of the Western composers would use square wave bass, like George Sanger, who did Maniac Mansion and Funhouse and all that. Just gives that kind of a deep, sawtooth, gritty bass feel to it.
It's awesome. It's such a gritty, tough, badass song. And so this game, Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge, is unlike other Castlevania games, because other Castlevania games are pretty linear in the sense that...
this is more like a Metroid-style game.
It's
in a sense. It's less linear.
So you're going through the game normally, like, the composer also did the first game, Castlevania The Adventure, which is super slow, really not that great. It's the worst of the three for the Game Boy, for the original Game Boy.
I'll agree with you there.
Yeah. But that one was more like a traditional Castlevania game in the sense that you're going from stage to stage in order of, it's always going to be the same order. However, in Belmont's Revenge, you can actually pick which level you want to go to. So you go to the Cloud Castle,
that's right, there's 4 different
Earth or Rock Castle, right? And so this actually was the very first one that I picked when playing the game. I was like, I picked this one. And I would forever and always first pick this one. Until later on, when I was like, no, I'm going to save this one for last. I was like, this is the best for last. And the whole game has fantastic music, and later on in the game, it's like straight up like Baroque era keyboards. And it's just, it's just like keyboards going up and down. So the soundtrack is really varied, really good stuff. If I had to pick a track, though, you just heard it. So, New Messiah, good stuff.
The only complaint I had about this game was that it is a little slow-paced. I mean, it takes forever for Simon to get across the screen.
All the Game Boy games are like that, yeah.
It's just, I guess maybe it's to cut down on screen blur, limitations of the console itself.
That's exactly what it was, yeah.
But other than that, it's a really good game.
So this track was composed by Hidehiro Funauchi, and he has done quite a bit of game music, mostly all for Konami. So he did, obviously, I just said earlier, Castlevania The Adventure. He also has done stuff for Operation C, mostly Game Boy stuff, Tiny Toon Adventures, Bab's Big Break. He also went on to do some other video type stuff, like for Police Knots and Nagano Winter Olympics '98. He was also thanked in like Kid Dracula. I'm not sure what for, maybe sound stuff.
Maybe. Sometimes those melodies from the Game Boy game probably just inspired a couple memories. Because I know Kid Dracula did have a lot of takeoffs on different Castlevania tracks.
Yeah,
so
that's possible.
Probably just use some of his melodies.
Yeah, that's true. It's pretty clear that he was part of the whole Konami Kukai Club.
Kukai Hot Club.
Kukai, yeah. Just sounds like coconuts to me.
The Konami Coconut Club.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Mounds Bar Room.
I don't know. So, what track are we going to be listening to next?
It's from the second level of Rhino Rumble.
Okay.
From the desert.
Okay.
Desert stage, actually.
Desert
so we'll just call this Desert.
Desert.
So, Rhino Rumble was a Game Boy Color game whose music was composed by Jeroen Tell. And Jeroen Tell is quite the prolific composer.
Yeah, he's right up there with like the Chris Hulsbeck, Rob Hubbard of the Commodore 64 era.
Yeah. He's a Dutch composer. He started off on the Commodore 64 like so many Western composers did. But he has music for, good God, just about everything. NES, Super Nintendo, Amiga, PS2. He's got a CDI game, for crying out loud.
Wow.
I can't count this list, but it's looking like probably over 100 games.
Well, without diving in and listing all of those, I'd say my personal favorite of his is RoboCop 3's intro music.
Yeah, it was pretty rad.
I would say for the Commodore, though, not the NES. I gotta say, like the NES, I think there was some of the grittiness was lost in the NES version. And when you compare the two, which you should totally do, it's not night and day. It's not like it's this one's completely different. They're very, very similar, but I just think the Commodore has a little bit more oomph to it.
Yeah. Well, as somebody who started off in the C64, I'm sure that Tel probably had a little more of a handle on good sounds out of the C64.
Yeah.
And the NES wasn't as powerful, I don't think. It had more sound channels.
Yeah, true.
But without a really, really good sound driver for the NES, I think the C64 kind of beat it out in terms of sound quality here and there.
Yeah. It really depends. I mean, if you're talking like what some of the Capcom composers were doing, no way.
Right.
They blow them out of the water.
Yeah.
But when you compare it with, some of the crappier NES stuff, I would say C64 beats it out.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But then the Game Boy itself had a little bit more flexibility in terms of sound than the NES did.
Yeah.
You can make it sound like an NES pretty easily. It has the same kind of wavetable synths and all that stuff going on, the square waves and etc. But it did have some extra PCM sample capabilities, a pure noise generator, and then it had the stereo too, so you can get more of a stereo effect going on. So this song starts off like most Western composers use, as those crazy arpeggios, those notes that are flying up and down and going crazy.
Songs all over the place.
Yeah, and then it kind of settles into this really nice synth melody that again gets caught in your head, just like my first pick did. So let's enjoy the Desert Stage from Rhino Rumble for the Game Boy Color. This is the Game Boy.
Hi, my name is Game Boy.
Isn't he cute? He plays all sorts of great games.
Would you like to play a game with me? We can play Super Mario Land or Pokemon or Alfred Chicken.
Oh, maybe later, little one.
Okay, la 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 la.
Isn't he adorable, folks? Well, I know you. You don't want adorable. You want a system that can kick ass and rock out and fart and do manly stuff. Well, we've got just the thing for you. Introducing Game Bro.
Yo ho ho! Where are the game ladies at?
This ain't your grandma's Tetris machine. You've grown up with the Game Boy, and now the Game Boy has grown up with you. This baby runs on pure testosterone and beer. It comes with a razor so you can shave its back. It requires deodorant every morning. And best of all, it only plays sports games.
That's right! NBA, NHL, NFL, PGA, PBA, MLE, and soccer! Yeah! You won't see any Pikachus ruining this manly physique! Now let's go watch some cheerleader cutscenes!
The Game Bro, 69 bits of hard-hitting, alcohol-swilling, stubble-growing fun! Pre-order now at GameFlop, Best Buy, or Shamazon.com. Not legal for sale where you live.
Yeah! That's the stuff! Alright, thanks for joining us back here at PixelTunes Radio. That song was from Shantae.
Was it called Burning Town?
Burning Town. That is a good song. That is actually one of the first songs that you hear in the game as you're just coming off the docks, and there's no music at that part, if I recall. You're just kind of entering into this literally burning town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The part where the cannonballs are flying
Yep.
at your face and all that stuff.
Yeah. So it's a really good track by a really good composer. This is by Jake Kaufman, who used to go as Virt. I guess he still sort of goes as Virt for like his chiptune stuff.
Yeah.
But for his actual like video game soundtracks, he goes by Jake Kaufman.
Right, so we originally played a track by him from Double Dragon Neon called
Right.
Mango Tango in our Beat 'em Ups episode, which was episode 2.
He's done a lot of stuff. First entered into the game market, I guess you could say, as a composer, doing Q*bert, the Game Boy Color port of Q*bert. Did a lot of portable games. Shantae was probably one of his most recognizable titles, and that was kind of what got him, at least in my opinion, well known.
Yeah.
But he'd been doing remixes for years. I mean, I remember listening to stuff on, what was that website, VG Mix? Or VG?
OC Remix.
Yeah.
Overclocked Remix.
Well, Overclock Remix, but he also, there was another website called like VG Metal, or VG Mix, or something. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, okay.
But it was mostly metal music, actually, like chiptune metal stuff. He has done mostly portable work, but he has also done non-portable work. So we'll kind of run through a little bit of some of the more well-known games he's done. He's done a lot of, I guess you could say, games that have like licenses, like licensed titles. Berenstain Bears and the Spooky Old Tree, Spy Hunter, Super Sprint, Rugrats, I Gotta Go Party.
It's funny how a lot of these Western composers really start off and end up doing like a lot of the licensed titles. Like even Tim Follin and you know, you always see them on licensed titles.
True.
I wonder why that is. I mean, most Western development houses end up doing licensed titles, and I think they kind of use that to get money in order to do their original projects.
I think it's also partly due to like wanting to, you know, actually get a job.
Yeah,
and
those games do sell regardless. of
exactly.
quality,
And being able to get your name out there and be like, hey, I did the soundtrack for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for Game Boy Color, or hire me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it shows that you're okay with working on licensed titles like Atlantis, which he also did. He also did Carnage Rally.
Best cover ever.
Best cover art ever.
Good God. And so Shantae wasn't licensed, though, was it?
No. Well, Shantae was an original creation by Way Forward Technologies, who he's kind of like, I guess, in bed with them, but in all the right ways. I mean, he's pretty much he's doing
in bed in all the right ways.
Jake Kaufman's going to listen to this and be like, this guy. But he's done tons and tons of work for them, and pretty much all their buddies too, because they all pretty much hang out together. I would imagine. They all
Go out for a
support.
pint after work.
Yeah. So they all pretty much support each other's projects. So he's done the Mighty series, like Mighty Milky Way, Mighty Switch Force, and Mighty Switch Force 2, which are incredible soundtracks. Especially the Mighty Switch Force.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I used
Those are
Mighty Switch Force as an intro for one of our podcasts.
Yep. And so it's no secret that he's one of my favorite composers.
Did he do the Mighty Mouse series?
No, he did not.
How about Mighty Max?
No.
Come on now.
I know. Oh, man. Such a jerk.
Jeez.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He did the Adventure Time soundtracks for Adventure Time, Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage, and Explore the Dungeon because I don't know. That's a great name.
Yes, one of my favorites.
Yeah. He then came back and did Shantae Risky's Revenge, and he also worked on Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, which is coming out later this year. Shantae Half Genie Hero, which is the big game that's coming out, the one that had the Kickstarter. So I'm really excited about that one. I actually donated money to that one. I'm pretty psyched. And another game I donated money to, Shovel Knight, which is coming out later this month in June. So he has done some amazing soundtracks.
And if you go to virt.bandcamp.com, you can purchase and listen to a lot of his stuff, including from Shantae Risky's Revenge and a lot of the other games he's done.
And the original Shantae.
Yeah, and Mighty Switch Force and Double Dragon Neon are both on there too. So
that is true.
If you've enjoyed those songs that we've played,
download them.
Get your butt on over there.
Yeah.
Grab some Jake Kaufman music.
So our next song is actually
Geheimnis.
Das Geheimnis der Happy Hippo Insel.
Which is German for The Secret of Happy Hippo Island.
Where do you pull this stuff out of?
My butt.
Your butt. And Europe. This track was composed by Stello Doussis.
Doussis.
I am not familiar, but so when does this track play?
This track plays during the
game.
Second stage?
Yeah, second stage.
It plays during the second stage.
Okay.
It's a little kid's game, but Stello started off doing like chiptune cracktros and intros for the C64.
Oh, cool.
It was like, a group of hackers basically would crack games and stuff. He was a scene music writer for the most part at the beginning. And then his music started getting noticed by game developers, so, he ended up getting hired out to do lots of Game Boy Color games and some games that never came out in the US. So this was, I think, a game that was only released in Germany, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, with a title like that, I would imagine so.
Yeah, there was no American version, or I think even UK version of this game.
This is a very happy song, much like the Nintendo Power track that we played earlier.
Yeah, well, the game is for kids.
Yeah.
You're this little blue happy hippo. You walk around on your hind legs, and you have a water meter, and you collect little water bottles. And if there's fire in front of you, you can press the B button, and you spit water out, and you basically douse the fire and move on.
So you're essentially a glorified animal firefighter.
More or less, I guess. Yeah, not much to say about the game, but the music,
pretty good.
Pretty rad.
Yeah, I'm digging it. Well, let's take a listen.
Absolutely. This is Das Geheimnis der Happy Hippo Insel from Stello Doussis.
Welcome back to PixelTunes Radio.
Ermagerd, Bertleturds!
Yes, that was Battletoads.
Bertleturds!
Battletoads for the Game Boy. This is the first game. Stage 4 by Dave Weiss, or David Weiss if you're nasty. David Weiss.
Mr. Weiss.
Mr. Weiss.
Mr. Weiss if you're nasty.
He has done some amazing music. I mean, we've played him on the show before, obviously. Probably, I was just talking about Wizards and Warriors 2, Iron Sword.
Yeah.
You know, all the Wizards and Warriors games, Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2.
Yeah, Battletoads and Donkey Kong, I think, are the two that he's most well known for. But then he also ported a Marble Madness soundtrack for the NES. He did Captain Skyhawk on the NES.
A lot of games. A lot of licensed games, too.
Yeah.
I think he did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, too.
Did he?
I think so.
Neat.
I'm pretty sure. He did a lot of soundtracks for... It was like rare games, but like they were published on different systems and stuff.
Yeah, you know, what's interesting about him is that all of his music was programmed and not played. So even up to the Super Nintendo, like when he was doing the Battletoads Super Nintendo games, he would use a sound driver where he would have to input 2 values for every note that was played in the song. One for the pitch of the note and the other one for the duration of the note. So every song you hear is him actually like manually typing in what value and pitch for every single note that's played. So
that's insane work.
I can only imagine how long. So that's why you don't hear a lot of crazy note runs, I think.
Right.
And his songs are more simple, but still
memorable.
Delicately composed because a lot of work goes into each tune.
Yeah.
Except Battletoads pause theme.
So yeah, he's done a lot of different stuff. One of my favorite soundtracks by him is Snake Rattle and Roll from Nintendo. I mean, that's just feel good.
Oh yeah, cool
50s and 60s like doo-wop type, Elvis stuff. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, he kind of got out of the scene for a little bit, but then most recently did Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Wii U.
Yeah,
brand new game.
I think the whole thing about with Rare, like everything that went down with Rare, kind of probably soured him a little bit, I would imagine.
Yeah, I heard that changeover wasn't the best for all the employees there.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I wish that they would have just stayed with Nintendo, but that's, I guess, the road not traveled.
Yeah,
sad face.
You learn from your mistakes, I guess. But, they're doing a good job with Donkey Kong Country now.
Yeah.
So, I guess you don't need to be Rare to be able to do Donkey Kong.
Very true. Very true.
That sounds really gross.
Yeah.
Take it the wrong way.
You don't need to be Rare to be Donkey Kong.
To do Donkey Kong.
To do Donkey Kong. Yeah, that's true. Anybody can do Donkey Kong.
You can be well done and do Donkey Kong.
As long as you're doing the DK rap while you do Donkey Kong.
Oh, don't even remind me. That is a song you will never hear from me on this podcast.
That is a song you will always hear from me on this podcast.
Good Lord.
So what's our next track?
Turok Rage Wars.
So this song is freaking awesome.
Yes.
Actually, all the music in this game is really good.
This is like straight up European techno.
Yeah.
On a Game Boy.
Yeah. Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Same thing.
Yeah,
No. This is the thing. I consider Game Boy and Game Boy Color to be one system.
Really?
Yeah. When I was like, dude, let's do a Game Boy podcast, you were like, are we going to do Game Boy Color too? I just kind of looked at you cross-eyed because I was like, of course, it's one system. Why wouldn't you do Game Boy Color games? I mean, because for the most part, the sound hardware is the same. You really, if you didn't know which game came from Game Boy Color or Game Boy, but by listening to it, I don't think you could really tell.
I don't know about that. I'm going to disagree with that. Yeah, because if you listen to the sounds, they're a lot more pronounced, I would say, on the Game Boy Color. I think that most of the games that came out there were even more so able to be emulated based on Nintendo. I mean, like Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, perfect example. You had Mario 1 on a Game Boy Color. If you look at the Game Boy Color and the games that were coming out, most of the games were either ports or like slight variations on the NES games. I mean, you would have like Bionic Commando and Super Mario Brothers and all these games were coming out, and they were mostly ports at first. I mean, either that or they were redos of original Game Boy games because they could be like, now we're in color.
Yeah.
Which I was always so mad that they never did Metroid 2. because that was a game that needed color to separate
all
the worlds.
That had Super Game Boy compatibility, though.
Yeah, true.
I mean, you obviously wouldn't get the array of colors,
no.
but it would still kind of recognize that cart and put its own color palette in.
Yeah, true. And then, of course, Game Boy Advance kind of put that in as well, because you could change the colors on Game Boy and Game Boy games, not Game Boy Color games.
Yeah.
But, anyways, Turok Rage Wars. This was obviously a port of the main N64 game that came out. The Turok Rage Wars were, multiplayer title on the N64.
Yeah.
But this is actually more of a platformer.
I'd say it wasn't really a port. It was just more of a...
It was a completely new
game with the same name, basically.
Yeah. And that's how they did it back then. That's how a lot of games... When portable games were coming out, even especially the Game Boy Advance, because you would see these grand, GameCube and PS2 games that were coming out, and the Game Boy was like, well, I can do this, and it was like platformers.
Oh yeah, there was such a disparity between the hardware capabilities that if you had a three-dimensional console game, you could not port that to a Game Boy or a Game Boy Color, not without it sucking crap, you know?
And what was nice about that is you had all these developers doing new, unique stuff that was more akin to the Nintendo, Super Nintendo era. And so, a game would come out like, for example, I don't know, like the TMNT game that came out, for the
or like Drill Dozer or something like that.
Yeah, Drill Dozer. Well, Drill Dozer was that was an original title that was really cool. You would see like TMNT on GameCube, PS2, Xbox, and it sucked. I mean, it was terrible. And then they would come out with a Game Boy Advance game, and it was like straight up
like an enhanced Super Nintendo game, basically.
2D brawler, and it was like an awesome beat 'em up, great music, which was actually done by Jake Kaufman. Great music, great game, lot of fun, and that was what was really special about the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color, and the Game Boy is you would oftentimes see portable versions of big time games. And the games were great. For the most part, they were really good. They were fun. They were just a different adventure.
Yeah, kind of a different spin or a different way to look at the same kind of theme.
So tell me about this Alberto Gonzalez guy.
Alberto Jose Gonzalez. I don't know. I mean, his music's amazing.
Yeah.
He was heavily inspired by Tim Fallon as he was growing up on all his Spectrum and C64 stuff. So Gonzalez actually started off composing on the Spectrum. He was a graphic designer as well, and did a little bit of coding for some games.
Oh, wow, really?
But then he ended up going into music full time, because I think just his music was heads and tails above any other stuff that was out there.
Well, this Turok track kind of shows that.
Yeah, he did a lot of work for the Turok series. I think he did the three Turok games that were on the Game Boy. Huh. He did a lot of the European titles, like Asterix and Obelix. Okay. And then he did Smurf's Nightmare. A lot of licensed titles, like we were talking about before. Mm-hmm. I've had the pleasure of talking with him on Facebook a little bit, and he knows his stuff. He's a huge video game music fan.
That's cool.
He really likes remixes. Mm-hmm. He's very gracious to people that, shout him out and say, I really love this music on your, on the Game Boy or whatever. His soundtracks kind of stand really heads and tails above a lot of the other stuff that's out there. This one, as I said before, is like a very European techno-style song. A lot of the stuff from Turok was a little more techno-oriented. Yeah. And the stuff from like Smurfs and Asterix and Obelix tended to be more like the chiptune, a lot of arpeggios and stuff like that.
Like happy-go-lucky type of European... Kind of like what we were listening to before with the German game.
Yeah. We will definitely hear more of Gonzalez in the future. I hope you guys really like this track. This is just track number 6. This was actually on my forum. I put out a little thing. I'm like, we're doing Game Boy games next podcast.
Boom.
Give me some suggestions.
Yeah.
And a user by the name of Knivesman, who's been a really cool guy, suggested this track. So shout out to him. Thanks for suggesting this one. Here we go. Alberto Jose Gonzalez.
This is Snake. Colonel, I'm entering what used to be the Outer Heaven base. This place hasn't changed much.
That's true, Snake. Watch yourself. We'll be supporting you through codec.
There he goes again. That stealthy super soldier, the one and only Solid Snake. Are you tired of this guy entering into places he doesn't belong?
Yeah.
I can imagine as a guard for your base, it must be pretty frustrating.
Tell me about it. This guy could come out of nowhere, and as a lowly guard, I don't really want to get involved. Just let me walk the base so I can help pay for my half of my child support.
That's entirely too much information. Anyways, what if I told you that there was a way to get away with taking him down without confrontation?
Oh, you mean like a bear trap or something?
No. That's just awful. You need Stealth Stopper.
Stealth Stopper? What does it do?
Stealth Stopper is a revolutionary way to stop pesky intruders from sneaking into your enemy bases. First, you'll need to attach Stealth Stopper to any household product, a coffee mug, lint brush, or AK-47, and listen as your target is caught.
Oh, okay. Well, how does it work?
Using a built-in nanotechnology-enhanced paper-thin speaker and recorder, Stealth Stopper allows you to pre-record yourself pretending to be a tourist by pressing the power button right underneath this plastic sheath. As soon as your target interacts with it, Stealth Stopper allows your target to be caught red-handed.
Oh, but why a tourist?
Who cares? Let's watch.
I'm close to Metal Gear. I can feel it. Hey, what's with this random teddy bear?
Oh my god, is that Solid Snake? Honey, get a picture with him. I never thought I'd meet anybody famous while vacationing, but just look at me now, Mom.
No, I'm attracting unwarranted attention. Damn you, Stealth Stopper.
Snake! Come in! Snake! Snake!
Oh, the hell with this, I'm going for a burger.
Stealth Stopper! Now available nowhere.
Welcome back. That was Inflitration 2 from Metal Gear Solid for the Game Boy Color.
Its technical term, Metal Gear Ghost Babel.
No, Ghost Babel was a Japanese version. It was Metal Gear Solid in the US.
It was Metal Gear Solid in the US, but I think most fans just call it Ghost Babel. I don't know why, but I don't know.
Well, you can Ghost Babel.
You can Ghost Babel your mom.
Gross.
You mean, hey.
Hey there.
Hey there.
Ricky. So tell me about this song. Tell me about this game.
Yeah.
I played the game a little bit, but I didn't get all the way through it.
Okay, neither did I. But it is really good. It's definitely a throwback to the MSX Metal Gear games.
Absolutely.
It really hammers home the whole classic stealth infiltration, and the AI is incredible in this game. Like it's really well done on the Game Boy. You wouldn't think that it would be, but you know, for a Game Boy Color game that came out somewhat late in its life cycle, not as late as Shantae, obviously, but this is definitely one of my favorite Metal Gear games. Right up there with Metal Gear Solid and obviously, you know, the MSX games, which I really need to sit down and play through because I really love the crap out of Ghost Babel. So this track, of course, is Inflitration 2. It plays during the later parts of you trying to get into this base. The whole premise of the game is you're going back to, you know, Solid Snake gets hired back in, you know, and it's all like, you know, from Alaska. I live in Alaska now.
I thought I was out, but they pulled me back in.
Yeah, basically that whole thing, you know. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the composers, because actually the composers are pretty famous for doing other Metal Gear games. So the first composer is NorihikoHibino, and he had done the work for Metal Gear Solid 4 for the cinematics, Metal Gear Solid 2 for all the in-game music, Metal Gear Solid for the Twin Snakes for the cutscenes, Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops. I mean, he's done pretty much mostly Metal Gear games.
Yeah.
Done some other stuff like Bayonetta, Zone of Enders. He's a fairly recent composer. Has done other stuff like anime and all other kinds of albums. He's also a saxophonist and has done stuff at Video Games Live and all sorts of other places.
Cool.
So yeah, he's multi-talented when it comes to composing.
It makes sense that somebody like, you know, Hideo Kojima, who is really obsessed with continuity and canon, would try to keep the same composer throughout all the games, because it does the games musically, whether it's from Game Boy all the way up to PS3, really kind of have that same feel and theme to it.
Same style, same theme. So the second composer was Kazuki Muraoka, and he also did Metal Gear for the NES. He did Contra for the arcade, Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear Solid VR missions, Boktai 2, Metal Gear Solid 3.
So basically Konami dude.
Yeah, basically Konami, yeah. So, but he also has done tons of work on Metal Gear. So these two kind of, I guess, pair up in most cases for Metal Gear games. And so this song is just laid back. I know you said you weren't really feeling the song that much. This wasn't really your jam. I don't know, I like stealth songs, infiltration type songs like this. One thing I will say about the Metal Gear games is they have very sneaking melodies.
Oh, yeah, it's espionage based.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's awesome.
And I'm not a big fan of that kind of game.
Right.
I played the first Metal Gear Solid, but I really didn't continue with the series because I don't, as a gamer, I don't feel like I have the patience to wait for a guy to walk by me and turn around and sneak up to him and be like, holy crap, he found me.
Yeah.
And then drag his body somewhere. It feels like work to me, and it doesn't feel like fun to me.
Okay.
And people enjoy that, and that's totally fine.
I can respect that, though.
So, like in this particular piece of music, because I don't really play that style game that much, as an individual piece of music, I think it feels slow and plodding.
Yeah.
But of course, in the breadth of where it is in the game and what you're doing in the game, of course the music is going to be apropos.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think you really need to at least have the game in your head when you're listening to this song, so you can know where it's coming from and know the whole theory behind it. And that's kind of with the Metal Gear games too. I mean, Hideo Kojima makes games that are basically like practically movies in most cases. Yep. I really wish they would return to this type of style, though, with the top-down traditional Metal Gear game. Even if it was like a downloadable
like
title.
a WiiWare game. Or
that'd be really cool. And, you know, it's a shame, because now, obviously, his games are more movies than games, especially with this latest Metal Gear that came out. I mean, a lot of people were complaining that there was like 20 minutes of gameplay footage.
Yeah, and I think a lot of effort goes into this kind of game. I don't know if they believe that the amount of effort would be worth the sales, and then there's also fitting it into canon, because Kojima, after Metal Gear Snake's Revenge, he was like, I'm never going to allow a game like that doesn't fit into the Metal Gear Solid storyline. Yeah. So I get there's a lot of planning that is going to go into a game like that if they decide to do kind of an offshoot style thing.
And they have done like Metal Gear Acid series, which was really cool.
Yeah, but none of them sold very well, and that's the problem. So I just think that the risk isn't really worth it for them if they're going to be spending millions upon millions of dollars doing a AAA title, you know?
Actually, there was a recent announcement that Konami gave their blessing to a I guess, remake of the original MSX game, which is awesome. Really cool. I'm excited to play that. I hope they release it for like actual download on like game consoles. You know what I mean? Something that will... really
usually
cool.
They only come out for PC, like that Mega Man vs. Street Fighter game that Capcom
I wanted that
licensed
for the Wii so bad.
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate, but I think there is a lot of licensing because you're going to have to pay the consoles to do that, and because Konami isn't actually going to be owning the rights to the game, the people that make the game are going to have to pay to put their game on a console, right? And so there's a whole other legal battle that goes into that.
Kickstarter, Konami. Make it happen.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
So, what about this next track? I've heard of this game, and I've heard the soundtrack because you played it, but tell us a little bit about this.
Well, Project S11 is a vertical shooter for Game Boy, and the game itself is...
Game Boy Color?
Game Boy Color, sorry. Yeah. Again, me linking them together in my head.
You silly guy.
I know. As a game goes, it's kind of a generic...
shooter.
It doesn't really have much that stands out about it except for this freaking amazing soundtrack. And it's composed by Alexei Eben and Jon Velthonen. And they are two European gentlemen who started off, again, just kind of like...
I could have sworn they were American.
Yeah, with those names. You know, there really aren't that many, aside from like Kaufman, American Game Boy composers.
That's true.
You know? Yeah. But in any case, I'm digressing. These two gentlemen were part of the intro and cracktro scene for the Commodore 64. However, they went kind of one step further, and now Velthonen does symphonic compositions for films and TV. And So he's really kind of like top tier uber composer now.
Strange, because a lot of composers actually do that. They go from, games to movies and like TV and film. And
like Just for Kid and going onward with that. Yeah, I guess it is kind of a logical progression if you want to start scoring for films and such. But then, there are a lot of people out there that just love chiptune, want to keep with that, so they just end up staying with that kind of music. And then Alexei Eben is the same kind of deal, except he's more, I think, stays more towards the pop and chiptune side of things. The soundtrack blows me away. I think it's probably one of the most impressive Game Boy soundtracks I've heard. It kind of reminds me of Summer Carnival 92, Rekka, a bit in the genre of music, where it's just kind of straight up European techno. But they do a lot of really cool things with the Game Boy that I've never heard before, with different, layers of sound and just some samples that are just kind of out of this world. So I'll let the music speak for itself. Here's Project S11. This is the Ikon's Desert stage.
Welcome back. That is PixelTunes Radio, and that was our final track.
The third Ninja Gaiden song we've played so far.
Yeah, well, you know what? I like me some Ninja Gaiden, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call it Ninja Gaiden or Ninja Gaiden.
It's Gaiden.
I know it's
Don't
Gaiden.
you remember The Wizard? The movie The Wizard? When everybody simultaneously learned how to pronounce Ninja Gaiden?
Ninja Gaiden! So that was Ninja Gaiden.
Because that was Ninja Gaiden until that movie came out. And at the end of the movie,
That's
you were
true.
like, Gaiden. Oh. Now it sounds weird to me. You know.
And there were all those games that came out, like, that had the word Gaiden in it, or Gaiden in it.
This means Wanderer.
Yeah, yeah. Like Resident Evil Gaiden.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Well, it's a lot of it is, like, side story. I've also...
Or side story.
Yeah, like side story. So, that track was obviously from Ninja Gaiden Shadow, and that was composed by Hiroki Iwatsuki. He's done tons of stuff for Natsume. And
Because this was originally a Natsume game, right?
Yep. Yeah, originally this game was a Shadow of the Ninja, but Tecmo got their hands on it, and I guess, I don't know, worked out a deal with them to be like, hey, it's going to sell if it's got the Ninja Gaiden name on it. And they were like, okay.
Can we buy this game from you guys?
Yeah, basically. But the game was pretty much wrapped up or in the processes of being finished.
Yeah, so a lot of the soundtrack ended up being pulled from Ninja Gaiden 2, with some original pieces from
the
Shadow of the Ninja.
This track was the credits track, and this is one of the few tracks that's original. Some of the other ones are, like the intro is right from Ninja Gaiden 2.
Yeah.
Just in a crappier rendition, I guess you could say.
That intro cracks me up, man.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a new villain, and it so breaks the fourth wall, because at the end, in parentheses, it's like, Jack here hasn't woken up yet.
Yeah. Yeah, this was...
By the way, this is where it appears in the storyline,
Yeah, this was definitely a side story to Ninja Gaiden, as we said.
Yeah, and it does feel a little bit slapped together, I think,
Yeah.
just because of the whole borrowing the game
Shadow
from
of the Ninja.
Natsume.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the tracks, you could really tell that they were composed by Hiroki Iwatsuki, whereas the other tracks are very Ninja Gaiden Tecmo-y.
Yeah.
So there's just this clash of companies that it just sounds weird. But I love it. It's a great soundtrack. Iwatsuki has done tons of soundtracks. Ninja Warriors, Pocky and Rocky 1 and 2, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Fighting Edition, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers he did sound effects for the original game. He also did Power Rangers the movie, Gundam Wing, which is a really good soundtrack.
I love the title of this one. Ghost Sweeper Mikami, Jireshi Hot Nice Body. And then Wild Guns, which is a pretty sought after game nowadays.
Nice body.
Nice body.
Nice body. This is my nice body.
I'm gonna sweep the ghost off that
Excuse
nice body.
me, do you see my nice body? That game is a Japan exclusive action game, actually. And it's developed by Natsume.
Yeah, but most recently he did Half Minute Hero and the second Half Minute Hero. He had tracks in both of those.
Yeah.
So
You'll see him pair with Kinuyo Yamashita pretty often. He does a lot of work with her. Good stuff.
we talked about a lot of this.
You
in previous
cannot,
podcasts.
yeah. But you know what? You gotta keep it fresh, man.
It's true.
It's what we're here for doing on the street. Keeping it real, keeping it fresh, keeping it tight.
Those mean streets of PixelTunes basement.
Yeah,
castle.
listen, you gotta keep things locked down,
Do you have any special Game Boy memories after you got the console or handheld or whatever?
Yeah. I remember being obsessed with any of the Castlevania games. And I would get super excited buying any handheld for Castlevania. In fact, I bought a PSP years later, years after the system came out. Specifically because they came out with a port of Rondo of Blood, which was an enhanced port.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd never gotten my hands on the game until the Wii version for the actual, when they came out with it on the Virtual Console. But, I just remember getting super stoked and excited about, reading about Circle of the Moon or any, Belmont's Revenge, any of the games that came out on any of the Game Boy systems or really any portable. So, yeah, that's kind of my selling point. If you put a Castlevania game out on a system, that's it. I gotta buy the system.
It's already in Mike's living room.
If they knew, if they knew that was the trick to get me to buy a system, just put out a Castlevania game, that'd be it, man.
I guess aside from Tetris, I really liked Mario 2, the 6 golden coins. I got all the way through that one.
Yep.
And then the first Ninja Turtles game, Fall of the Foot Clan. Man, I would play that game like obsessively. And I think I can still get through that entire game without losing a life.
Wow.
And it had a really good soundtrack too. But, you know, I didn't, like I said, because of my whole kind of aversion to handhelds, especially ones that aren't backlit, I didn't really start playing and getting interested in older Game Boy games until I was able to play them on a real TV via like Game Boy Player.
Yeah.
I'm actually really looking forward to the Retron 5. I know it was technically released a couple days ago as of this recording, but I haven't gotten mine from Amazon yet. But, you know, I do have a fair selection of Game Boy games at home. And the first thing I'll be doing is shoving it into that system and seeing how those work.
I should have blown the cartridge beforehand.
Yeah, well, the cool thing is you can play with like Super Nintendo or Genesis controllers, so you can really kind of, you know, experience the Game Boy any way you want.
That's true, yeah. And I mean, like, I remember all the various different things that came out to play Game Boy on a big screen TV, like the Game Boy, the Super Game Boy that came out that enhanced the colors, which was really cool. I never had one of those back in the day.
Oh, I loved mine.
The Game Boy Player was really my first experience with playing portable games on, and it's still my preferred choice of playing a game on like a big screen TV.
Yeah.
So I love my Game Boy Player. It's fantastic. So this is going to do it for our Game Boy Spotlight. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave us some comments. And where can you leave some comments for that?
Jeez. Well, we do have a Facebook page.
Do we? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I guess
you
people
can go
could do that.
Yeah, you can go to facebook.com/PixelTunesRadio, and we will post videos of the games that we're talking about. We'll post some pictures of stuff going on.
Maybe some Instagram stuff
Some
going.
Instagram. We've got, Instagram, PixelTunesRadio on Instagram.
Add us on Twitter at twitter.com/PixelTunesRadio.
And we will respond to any questions we get through Twitter or Facebook. We love interacting with you guys. So
yeah, talk to us, show us you love us, or show us you hate us. Whatever you want to do, it's cool.
Yeah, we'll take your hate in stride.
We also have some mugs for sale. So PixelTunes Radio, you'll be able to order a mug, which you may have seen on the Facebook page recently. If you're interested, send us a message. We'd love to get you guys out some goodies to you order and send them out to you so you can share the PixelTunes Radio love with everyone.
Yeah, and if you guys would prefer like t-shirts or hoodies, let us know, because if there's an interest for it, we'll definitely have some made up, and we will definitely be offering those as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna get me a PixelTunes Radio hoodie.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome for the fall season. But you know what? It's summer. Gotta cool down with a t-shirt, a nice cup of water.
Iced tea.
Iced tea.
Iced coffee.
Iced coffee. Yeah, that sounds good right about now. Let's go get one of those. All right. So until next time, stay tuned, be safe, be cool, and go play some Game Boy outside.
Go play a game, boy. Peace out, suckers.